today I have a really neat guy with me. I met him at a breakthrough business boot camp. And one, he's a really cool guy, but two, we broke boards with him. And I can't explain it to you. We'll let him explain it, but please welcome, he's a speaker. He does workshops, he does coaching, he does Facebook Live videos, and he talks about mental stuff and getting that out of your way and, you know, discovering your inner champion. So please welcome Chris Natzke, Mind of a Champion. And if you're wondering who he is, go Google him. Or no, just go to his website. It's www.chrisnatzke, C-H-R-I-S, last name is Natzke.com. Welcome, Chris.
Well, thanks, Michelle. It's great to be here.
I finally got you on my show.
Yeah, how about that?
Well, I'm excited because when I first met you, you walk into a room with this presence about you. And I didn't even know what you did, and I knew what you did by the way you walk. And I'm a big believer in body, basically. How you hold yourself is how people will see you. So within the first 3 seconds, people can make a decision on if they trust you, know you, like you, whatever, all that in 3 seconds, under 3 seconds. And when I saw you, I went, this guy's got to be some immense black belt. And I was right. You're a serious black belt. And what degree of black belt are you?
I was just awarded my 8th degree black belt in the Superfoot Fighting Systems, which is the originator of that is one of my instructors, Bill Superfoot Wallace, a former middleweight kickboxing champion. And so I have an 8th degree black belt in Superfoot Systems, and I have a 7th degree black belt in the Korean martial art of Taekwondo.
Oh, wow. So do we call you a 7th, 8th?
Yeah, right. A 7.5, maybe that'll work.
No, I'm excited to have you because I experienced one of your workshops. And I know I experienced a condensed version of your workshop. And one, look him up, people, because I do a lot of mind work too, just like you, Chris, but you gave me a physical representation of what was holding me back. And I always talk about, mental things, but to break through something physically blew my mind. So much so that one, I did a testimony for you, but two, everything I wrote on the board that I broke in February happened.
Amen.
I broke through and got to it. And so that is my huge testimony for you, Chris, was, wow, that tweak of what I've done by giving someone a physical aspect of whatever they're trying to, whatever is holding them back, was mind-blowing for me. It felt good too, because it's like, bam,
boom,
boom. So tell us more about what you do. I mean, because I know you have a book called Black Belt Leadership.
Correct.
It's out all over the place. I mean, I saw it on your website too. But if anyone's looking for his book, you can go to his website to learn more about him. But there's a button on his website that just goes straight to the book. And it's called Black Belt Leadership, 7 Keys to Creating a Life of Purpose by Discovering Your Inner Champion.
That's right. Well, it's interesting, Michelle. I'm basically doing the same work that I've been doing for decades. I mean, I started martial arts back in the early 70s when I was about 10 years old. And totally fell in love with it. I mean, the first time I walked on the mat, it actually wasn't a mat, it was a concrete floor that we were training on, but I just felt like I came home. And this was the time, right now in today's day and age, everyone thinks martial arts is a kid's activity. This is before the Karate Kid or anything like that came out. So I was one of only 2 kids among a bunch of 20-year-old men training, but it didn't matter to me. I just felt incredibly just connected to what I was doing. And one of the things in martial arts, we call martial arts an action philosophy, right? So you have physical movements, obviously, kicking, punching, throwing, twisting, grappling, whatever, but there's a real philosophy that integrates within it. It's part of its essence, because the kicking and punching, quite honestly, can get old after a while, but when you have substance to it, and it's allowing people a vehicle to grow and expand in their own greatness, that's where the benefit comes. And so I've just taken those lessons, those learnings, the things I've learned, the things I've been teaching for decades, and said, you know what? You don't need to be a black belt to know these because they're inherent within all of us. And I can take this to the masses. I can take this to a group. Next week, I'll be with a bunch of business owners and CEOs. The week after that, I might be with a bunch of high school students, because people understand and they want to be able to touch that part of themselves and express it in the world.
I say our inner tiger.
That's right. I call it our inner champion, right?
Yeah.
We all have it. And we have a saying in martial arts is that a champion doesn't need to be told what to do. They just need to be reminded. And many would think that that's just about recollection, but I take it to the point that we're actually having to shift our mindset, right? We're needing to look at situations, and importantly ourselves, maybe differently than we ever had before. And that's the starting point of transformation.
Yes. And I talk about, turning on the light because we forgot we had one.
That's right. That's right. Got lost in the dark.
Yeah, we got lost in the dark, forgot what magnificent humans we are. And it's like, we are part of something bigger than ourselves. And if you can just feel that just a little bit. I mean, I'm going to touch real quick on your other website, higherselfdefense.com, because I find it very appropriate at this point in time, because it's called, your tagline on it is practical protection from the inside out.
Correct.
And that's huge in my world, because I believe that, like I said, that first 3 seconds, people decide. They decide if they like you, if they can trust you, whatever. But, and it sounds scary, it sounds terrifying, but predators, bad people, also in 3 seconds decide, can I take that person? Will they fight back? Will it be, yeah, so 3 seconds is huge. And if you can learn to hold yourself in the way of confidence, and it's not a fake it till you make it. In martial arts, it's, I got this.
That's right. There's an essence to it. Well, you've set me up incredibly well for what I was going to share, because the higher self-defense technology is adrenal stress technology. And I do it with my business partner, Teresa Byrne. And so she and I collectively teach these classes, and give you a couple of statistics. 80% of women who are attacked by men that they know. Mm-hmm. And 85% of sexual assault will begin with verbal intimidation before it ever gets physical. So what we do systematically, and it's a stair-step process, but we actually do live role plays where I play the role of the assailant and my partner is playing the role of coach. And we're going through what we call a woof, where we're actually confronting someone verbally, escalating the conversation, sometimes using profanities, raising our voice, et cetera, to get that adrenal charge, but then teaching someone how to access that. Because what happens is we have the fight or flight mechanism ingrained within us, right? But what's happened over the millennium is we have created a third response, which is freeze. And if people out there don't think that they've ever frozen, think of the last time you were in a verbal confrontation with someone and nothing came out of your mouth. And then as you were driving home, you started thinking, I should have said this and I should have said that. Well, it's because you didn't know how to deal with that response. And the other point that you set me up so beautifully on, Michelle, is that our organization actually went to federal prisons and they asked sex offenders what they were looking for. And they described that it had nothing to do with a woman's clothing or long hair, short skirts. It had everything to do with the way that she was carrying herself. And in a separate study, we went to 2 different penitentiaries, asked sex offenders to look at pictures and videotape of people, and with a 97% accuracy rate, they picked the same people they would prey upon. And it had everything to do about how they were carrying their bodies. Mm-hmm. So that's the first level of self-defense that we teach, is the way we also teach people to make eye contact if you're confronted, because when most people do, particularly women, they're taught and they're socialized to look away. But we always tell them, be able to look at them in enough time to be able to identify them in a lineup, and so that you've set your tone, you have set your power base, and then move on from there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm huge on that, because I was attacked. Sure. And so my thought was, I looked back at it and I remember cowering back. Yes. But when I stopped him, it was months later, when I stopped him, I made full eye contact and said, enough.
There you go.
And it was, I felt the energy come off of me.
Right.
And he even backed up. It's like, I didn't even have to say enough. There was a look in my eye where he knew she is not going to tolerate this anymore.
That's right. Because predators, Michelle, predators are not looking for a fight. They are looking for a victim.
Yeah, they want to win.
And when you establish that, you know, that's 80, 90% of the battle. We do a physical component within that class as well, where I go in a big padded suit and they actually have a fight with me, et cetera. But 80% of the class is done when they learn the verbal, because that's where they're going to use it. And it doesn't just move them in terms of self-defense scenarios. It works assertiveness in the workplace, assertiveness in relationships. I mean, it transfers to everything. Incredibly powerful program.
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, I'm just talking about your board break back to that, and just awesome. I can't explain it. It's just, and you've seen it. Well, the last time I saw you do this board break, there was a woman who could not break the board, just could not break that board. And then it was in her head that maybe I can't. I mean, you could see it, you could feel it on her. Maybe I can't, and her every time she hit, it started getting less direct. It started kind of looking like a slap. And I remember thinking, she's never going to break it if she doesn't believe. And then you whispered something in her ear.
That's right.
And she came back, went, bam! And it was like, yeah, I mean, as soon as you had moved away from her, after you had said something, there was this look in her eye. And the two ladies that were standing next to me, we both looked at her and went, she's going to break it this time. And she did. Yeah. And it was this essence about her. It was, I don't believe, I can.
Yeah, well, you know, the board breaking experience has really been one of, obviously this is separate from the self-defense work that I do, but the board breaking experience is probably one of the things that I just absolutely love doing, because you literally see transformation in front of your eyes immediately right there. And you know, everyone who does that comes up against their own fears, right? Women, I think in general, are fearful that they may not have the strength to break it. Guys are fearful that the lady broke it, and if I can't break it, I'm gonna look bad. You know, all that ego stuff's happening. But what's interesting is even though everybody wants to break it on the first time, where they get, as well as the group gets, the greatest benefit is when someone, as you said, this woman was not able to break. And because we've all been through that. We've all been through where we get knocked down, we have to get back up. And it's without, it's never happened, it's never not happened, let me say that, is when someone has struggled like this woman did. And what many people didn't know in the audience is she was also dealing with multiple sclerosis. Mm-hmm. So her ability to move through it, she knew where her mind was, her body wasn't following her. But when she finally broke that board, you could just feel the energy. The place erupted, right? Yes. Literally people on their feet clapping, tears in their eyes, etc., because people can recognize that. We resonate with that as a species. People going through an adversity and coming through powerfully on the other side. Yeah. And what's so neat about that too, Michelle, is that I've seen those kinds of results. I've done it with, you know, corporate groups and, you know, business groups, etc. I've done it with teenage kids, and it's all the same. We all have inside of us that same desire to really feel empowered and to find that sense of strength inside of ourselves. And then from that point, that's where we share our gifts in the world. That's a heck of a combination.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I think I gave a power talk at that same boot camp after your board break, because I was so riled up. I gave a power talk, but that power talk, I'm redoing my whole book now, because I'm taking that talk, transcribing it, and putting it into the book, because my book, It's Not Luck, Overcoming You. The talk I gave after experiencing your board break, experiencing the energy of the room, shifted the idea of how my book should be done. So I moved it. I'm redoing the whole thing because of you.
Thank you. Thank you. You made my day, my friend. You made my day. That's awesome. I love hearing those stories.
Well, because the world needs more of what we do in the world. Right. And if we can highlight it more so that people can recognize it, because the thing is what's holding us back in the world is us.
Totally.
And if we can just get over our, you know, I say inner critic, to recognize the greatness in you, you go the other way by recognizing your inner critic so you can step away. So we just have slight turns, but it's the same thing.
Totally. Well, you know, when they're breaking that board, they have already written on one side there is their breakthrough. The other side is what has been holding them back. What's their limiting belief? And if I might indulge you with a quick story here, this
Please.
is the one that illustrates it so well for me. As I said, I do this with corporate groups all the time, but I also love doing it with teenagers. And I was asked, been back there now twice in the last 2 years, a school here in the Denver area in Jefferson County. And this is a school of 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. And it's their last, they've been kicked out of every other school in Jeffco. Let's put it that way. So this is their last place before, you know, juvenile detention, et cetera. So the principal heard about me and called me up and said, I want you to do this board breaking thing. And I have to tell you, I was resistant. I'm like, you know, I don't know if this group can handle it. But she said, no, they can do it. And quite honestly, it was one of my more challenging outings, you know, 2 hours, keeping those kids engaged. However, the story that just inspired me, keeps me going is, as you know, Michelle, before you do the board break, you do what's called the pronouncement. You state your name powerfully. You say what your breakthrough is. You say what your limiting belief is. And I had 2 young boys that I'll never forget. First young boy says his name, says his breakthrough, and then he says, but what's been holding me back is my alcoholism. And he was 14 years old. Then the next young boy, immediately after him, said his name, his breakthrough, and he said, but what's been holding me back is, as long as I can remember, my father has been beating my mom, my sister, and me. And then he took the board, Michelle, and he flipped it over. And it just simply said DAD on the board. And he held it up in front of everyone. He said, but one day, I'm going to be a great dad.
Oh.
I've told that story hundreds of times. I still get the chills. And then, of course, they both broke through and the place went nuts. But the idea was there was something he saw inside of him, both of those guys, that could take them outside of their current circumstance, and they could be hopeful and move in an empowered way towards something greater. And that's what inspires me.
Well, that's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to thank you for being a man in the world, okay? A good man in the world, because we don't have a lot of examples of that. And so I know as a young person growing up, I remember looking at my father thinking, I will never be married, because I will never marry anything like that. And if that's a man, then I don't want one. But growing up, I met a lot of teachers and things like that. And I went, okay, I don't think my dad is the pinnacle. I think he's an exception to the rule. And so that's what triggered my life, was what I'm seeing is not reality. There is hope. And that's why it's important to have people who are doing good things in the world, so that those of us who don't have great role models can look at other people and do, I don't have to be this way.
Well, Michelle, what you just said, I just so appreciate and so take to heart. And I just think it's necessary just to kind of share this a little bit too. I came as a result of originally not having that. I had a father who lived at home, but terribly struggled with his alcoholism. Mm. So I didn't know each day who I was going to be coming home to. I didn't know if I was going to be coming home from school and he'd come home from work and he'd be happy and want to play, or if he would just be, you know, verbally abusive, sometimes physically abusive, et cetera. So my view of what masculinity was very distorted. It was very confusing, because I knew deep down inside, even as a young boy, this wasn't right, but I didn't really have any other role models until I found martial arts. And you've heard me speak before, and I always tell the story of my martial arts instructor and how, you know, one day him looking at me intently in the eyes and saying, I will make you a champion. And for the first time in my life, excuse me, I had a man who I tremendously respected, admired, who's just exuded strength and confidence, that saw greatness in me and called it out. And as I share, and particularly when I talk with teens, he said, I will make you a champion. But what my heart heard was, I believe in you. Mm-hmm. And I think it's from that place that I really began to realize what powerful and heart-centered masculinity was, as well as that as I grew later on, I realized I could change that. I could change that story. I could change that in my sons' lives, and also then in the students who I taught in martial arts myself. So my original instructor, Grandmaster J.K. Lee, he's my hero. I mean, he's the one that gave me that gift to see that there's something that I can now pay forward.
That's awesome. Well, and I say that also because I had a lot of uncles who are phenomenal. My grandfather was amazing, but in my head, dad equaled what it was supposed to be. And it didn't matter how amazing everyone around me was. Dad was a big deal.
That's right. Well, you know, when you look at both men and women, most of us who have gone through difficulties have some sort of a father wound of some sort. You know, either a father that had not treated his daughter properly, or and taught them how to what was expected of a good man, right? And then the same thing as a role model. So that's one of the things. I'm on an advisory board for an organization called Be Men, and one of our charters is to teach healthy masculinity, heart-centered masculinity, through what we call the 5 pillars of male wellness. So, you know, physical, financial, spiritual, mental, and physical. And so how do we, because men, there's a lot of men hurting out there because they're coming from a long lineage of that. So where's a place where they can actually learn to be a man, to be healthy in their masculinity, and continue to perpetuate that in all the places that they show up, in their work, with their families, with their spouses or partners, whoever that is. And there are not a lot of places. There's not a lot of manuals out there, you know, to teach you how to be a good man.
No, and what I saw with growing up and being an adult and working with people as a coach is men have been programmed that they're not allowed to have emotion.
Exactly.
And when they're hurting, they got to suck it up, buttercup. And it's like, no, do not. All that does is build up inside of you. You are human. You must be able to have some sort of, you need to let that out. You don't have to have everything in place and perfect at all times. You know, oh no, women cry. Yeah, so can men, okay?
Right, absolutely.
We're made out of the exact same stuff.
I would agree. In fact, I had a teacher tell me years ago that 100% strength comes from 100% vulnerability.
I like that.
And I'm not saying that I always perfectly emulate that, but it does give you permission. And in fact, even in the blog that I just it's being released in 4 minutes as we speak. Yeah, I'm going to be talking about a time in my life where I was down and out because I felt if I wasn't perfect, I was an absolute failure. And like it happens in most men, it doesn't usually tend to process easily. We repress it until it shows up, and we just melt down.
Yeah, goes into everything else.
And whether either we melt down or we project out in an unhealthy way. So I get it.
Now, see, with me, I thought you had to be perfect at all times, period. Mm-hmm. Everyone. Yeah. And I didn't understand when people weren't perfect, or if they did wrong things, because what are they doing? They're supposed to be perfect, and you're supposed to do your best at all times and be the best. And you know where I realized it was wrong? I'm an engineering student. And when we were building structures and doing the math for buildings and towers, you had to build in a variance of fault. So anything that was built so perfect, rigid, would fall.
Oh, beautiful analogy.
Yeah, so we would build, giving it a variance, depending on the wind in the area, whatever, plus or minus 7, so that every structure does this. Have you been to the top of, you know, any tall building?
Sure, absolutely.
Because a structure is far more strong. It's more stable.
Right. It
has wiggle room.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. If you
that might be my next blog.
Dude.
Love that.
Another good analogy of that was Galloping Gertie in Washington State. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It was a Tacoma Narrows Bridge. They built it over the Tacoma River. I can't remember the name right now. And they made it rigid. When the wind came through, the harmonics of the wind hitting the bridge made it start buckling. Oh. And during rush hour traffic, a bridge is doing this with cars on it.
Word. Wow.
And it's called Galloping Gertie in engineering because they didn't build it with the variance for it to move.
Wow.
If they had given it just a little wiggle room to make mistakes, it would have just stayed. It would have just done this.
Wow.
So everyone needs to give themselves a little wiggle room.
Amen.
If you're that rigid, you will fall.
Amen. Wow. Yeah, the blog that I'm publishing here is called Are You Letting Perfect Get in the Way of Possible?
Oh, no, that already went out this morning.
Oh, did it go out this morning? All right, good. Well, I sent a video out yesterday, and there's a written version going out at 10 o'clock here in Mountain Time. So, but that's the whole idea, is that how many times we get locked into, for whatever reason. And for me, you know, growing up in the household that I did, if I was perfect in every way, then I helped, at least in my mind, help settle things down, right? Because I could be the stabilizing force. If I was the perfect student and the perfect son and the perfect athlete and all those things, then everything would kind of hold together, because dad was the one that was being so erratic. And it worked really well until it didn't, until it stopped. And now what are you going to do? So.
Well, and that's what there was a Alanis Morissette song back in the 80s. And I used to cry every time I heard it, because one of the lines she has is, "We'll love you just the way you are. If you're perfect." It was the last line she said. I went, oh, because I had always wanted love, but to be loved, I had to be perfect. And I had all these parameters I had put around myself. And it wasn't like I ever was told all of these things straight on. It was, okay, that person gets love because of this. This person gets love because, and I assembled what would be the perfect person to love. Yeah. And it doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. I understand. Yep. I hear you, sister. Talking the same language. Love it.
I know we are. Well, for those of you who just tuned in and are watching this video or listening on the radio on the SoundCloud link, we are listening to Chris Natzke. He does Mind of a Champion. His website is www.chris, C-H-R-I-S, Natzke, Natzke.com. And he is an 8th degree black belt in Superfoot systems.
Yep.
And 7th degree black belt in Taekwondo.
That's correct.
I met him at a boot camp when he did a sampling of one of his workshops, which was board breaking, life changing for me, because everything I said I wanted to break through, my fear of what I wanted to break through to what I wanted, has come through within 7 months. And I wanted to, one, thank Chris, and then have him on the show, because I wanted all of you to get to know him too. So if you haven't gotten to meet Chris before, if you had the pleasure of being one of his board breaks or attending one of his classes at Higher Self-Defense, you can go to higherselfdefense.com and find out more about that. But find out more about Chris. Follow him on Facebook. Just follow him. He's got a lot of wisdom, and he basically, I don't know if you're just talking like you're not here. He basically, he equates martial arts to life. It's a metaphor for life. And Chris, I'm going to back up on you with that.
Sure.
I understand the metaphor for life. Can you explain that to the audience?
Boy, yeah, you know, it's an interesting concept, because one of the things that you learn very early in martial arts, and some of the things that I've seen in martial arts as I've been teaching for all these years, is that we all come to that experience with our own set of unique struggles. In fact, I oftentimes will share when I do my keynoting is that I think I have about 1,000 students over the last 20 years that have reached their black belt rank with me. And of those 1,000 students, I can think of only two that when I first saw them, I knew that they had every skill set necessary to be a black belt. I mean, at that time, not that it was within them being hidden, but I mean, they demonstrated. They were strong, flexible, focused, courageous, all these things, only two. And those two did eventually make it to black belt. But those other 998, they had to unearth those things inside of themselves. They had to move through struggles, and they had to go that whole thing. And in fact, there was a study done years ago where scientists looked at what was the commonality of people who have been successful. And they thought, well, it must be socioeconomic background, right? And then they got in the numbers, and that wasn't it. And then they said, well, it must be education. It must be the schools they went to. No correlation. They said, well, it must be IQ. That had nothing to do with it. The number one reason that people became successful in whatever endeavor they chose was grit.
Yeah, resilience.
Resilience. And we have a saying in martial arts is that a black belt is a white belt that never quit. A black belt is a white belt that never quit. So, you know, when you're moving through adversity, what most people don't understand is they don't either have the tools and or the belief in themselves, because obstacles will occur. It's part of our growth process. And so by utilizing martial arts as a metaphor, and of course the board break as well, when I do that seminar, is we're telling people that the tools, the strength, the power is already within them. It needs to be unearthed. It's there. Let us help you pull that out. Let me help you pull that out. And then know that it's there, not so that things just move through slow or beautifully in life, because they're not, but it's when those obstacles occur, you know that you have the resiliency, the power, the intention to be able to move through those. Because, I often say to people when I'm coaching them and when I'm speaking as well, talk about the most impactful parts of your life, the ones that you're the proudest of, the ones that you love to tell stories about. And invariably, Michelle, they're going to talk about an instance where they overcame an obstacle. That's what they're going to talk about. So it's designed within this human experience. So what I think I do through the martial art metaphor is help people have that experience by using that as their guide.
Get back up.
That's right. That's right. Amen. It's just what it is, and we admire people that way too. The people in society. Okay, I'll just tell you another thing. I actually wrote about in this week's blog. Years ago, I was on the phone with my mom when I first opened my speaking business, and it wasn't moving as fast as I wanted to, right?
It never does.
I know you can probably relate to that, right, my friend? So I'm on the phone, I'm just complaining to mom, I don't know if this is gonna work, I don't know, and she's one of the one people on earth that I can really just vent to. And she listens to me, and then she says to me, so you wanna be one of those motivational speakers, right? And I said, yes, I sure do. She goes, well, I have a question for you. If your life is perfect and you never have any challenges and everything goes well all the time, do you think anyone's gonna ever wanna listen to you?
Nope.
I was like, oh my gosh, put my mom back on the phone. Who is this woman, right? But she was so right. She was so right. Because that adversity that we move through, those challenges, is what molds us into the people that we are.
Yes, and we become good examples of, yes, you can.
Oh, of course.
I mean, I know people like to hear my story when I keynote because of that. It's, okay, if she can make it through that, then certainly I can make it through this.
Right.
And I was afraid to tell my story at the beginning because I'm like, it's kind of huge and crazy. People are going to do, well, that didn't happen to me, so let's not listen to that. But opposite happened. It was, if you can do that, what I consider big, I can do this. Mm-hmm. Now, I know I told you this. I was in Taekwondo, right?
Yes, yes.
And I had great difficulty embracing my inner champion. Because I joined to protect my kids. And that's how they figured out how to get me to muscle up, because I didn't want to hurt anybody. I'm a mom. I had 2 little babies. I didn't want to hurt anybody. And what they ended up having to do to make me fight was they told me, someone's trying to hurt your kids.
That's right.
Didn't bother me when he said someone.
That's right. When
he said, I'm going to hurt your kids. I kicked him in the head so fast he didn't even it was like, I didn't even know it was in me.
That's right.
And then he said, that is what I want you to embrace. That is the power that I say you have in you. And you didn't believe me. I'm like, I do have that.
That's right. Well, I'm laughing because when we teach the higher self-defense course, we call that the mama bear response. In fact, when we do that program with kids, we do with little kids ages like 6 to 11, we tell them that if they're not able to find, say, a police officer or a teacher or whatever, the one person they should look for is a mother with kids. Mm-hmm. Because there's that mama bear instinct that's there. But, it's interesting. Many of us are fearful of tapping into what you just said you tapped into. And what I know to be true is if we don't tap into that at some point in time, it ends up controlling us. Mm-hmm. It's like this beach ball that we're trying to hold underwater, and then it pops up through the surface. We need to be able to be in touch. And then when we understand that part of ourselves and we embrace it, that violent part of ourselves, that part that can be aggressive, powerful, whatever that is, now we can be choiceful as to when we're going to access it. But until we embrace it, it's really in control. So those who say, no, I would never do martial arts because it's violent, or I believe we need to embrace that part of ourselves.
One of my big keynotes, and I did it at the Toastmasters International Conference, I basically said you need to embrace an animal, okay? I said the word predator has been taken away. I saw a speaker named Bo Eason. He's a football.
Oh yeah, I've heard Bo.
Bo is amazing.
Yeah, Bo, former football player.
Yes.
I played football against his brother in college. Yeah.
Well, he's
Champagne
awesome.
Tony Easton is who his brother is. Yep.
Well, he's an awesome guy, and he had put together in his terms what I was teaching already. And I always talked about body language. So 60-30-10, your body language is the first thing people notice, blah, 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 blah. Well, he said the term predator has been taken over by bad people. His predator is a majestic creature, strong, majestic, blah, blah, blah. He was going on about how amazing a predator is. He is, when you see a lion, do you think, you know, what a horrible creature? No, you do. That is the most majestic, beautiful creature on earth. I don't want to be in front of its teeth.
That's right.
Majestic nonetheless. And he said, I'm taking back the word predator. I want you to take back the word predator, because the predator is the apex that all the other ones are afraid of. He is, who's the biggest predator on this planet? Humans. But yet we walk and we apologize for walking. We apologize for owning the space we're in. He has, own your space.
Yeah.
So if I put a tigress up here, what would you do? And then, you know, a couple of people said, run. He has, and you'd be eaten. Right? You'd be eaten.
Wow.
He's like, what you would do is you would watch it in awe.
Yeah.
And that's the personality trait you're after. You want to be able to walk where everyone in that room notices you and does, I don't know what they do, but I want to know who that person is. That's the magnetism you need to walk in. And if you ever watch Bo Eason walk, he walks like an animal. There's this, you do the same thing. It's a long stride, and it's I own every step I walk on. And I trained that at a conference, and everyone kept coming up to me doing, I'm a puma, you know, I'm this, I'm an owl. And so everyone had a different animal.
Right.
But what it does is it helps us embody that inner predator that we already are.
We are.
And then that way, and I said, you know, the thing about predators is predators don't tend to attack predators. Predators respect other predators because they don't know the strength of the other ones, so they kind of back off. Right. And I know I do that after my Taekwondo, you know, I made it up to black belt, because I know now that I will never be another victim because I won't allow it.
Right. And I would argue that because you made that choice inside of yourself, that's the energy that you are now projecting powerfully out in the world. The chances of you being attacked were dramatically reduced because you're no longer putting out a victim mentality. It works, you know, the power and the energy that we put out is probably our greatest self-defense.
It is. It's huge.
It is our greatest self-defense.
Yeah. It's huge. You know, I have to giggle because there's a cricket in here.
Yes, there is. And you know, I'm hearing him too, and I'm wondering if he got in my office here because he's singing. So I'm going to see if I can interrupt his little bit of.
No, we'll just tell him to.
I'm just going to shoo him away. I'm not going to do anything mean to him.
Okay. There was no harm done to the cricket.
No, there was no harm done to the cricket. I don't do that. Don't do that.
But you know, we were talking about, you know, owning your inner predator, and basically, if you need to be able to embody something, you embody that, and your shoulders go back, your head comes up, your eyes you get very focused on what you do, and it's actually how I made it through my karate, because I needed to channel something else, because I look at my babies and I'd be seeing them being kicked by other kids, and I'm like, okay, back out, get back in my head. Okay, who am I?
When I had my martial arts school for many years, you know, of course, parents would bring their kids in because they're being bullied occasionally, actually quite frequently. And what I started to notice is that after several weeks, all of a sudden when I check in, the bullying had stopped. And these kids had not punched anybody in the nose or kicked anybody in the stomach. They just started standing differently. They started presenting themselves more powerfully. And as a result of that, the bullying started to stop.
Well, but that's why I train the 60-30-10, that you have 3 seconds to make a strong first impression, because bullying doesn't stop as adults. Matter of fact, bullying gets really sneaky as adults. Absolutely. And so a lot of the coaching I've done is it's usually because someone's being bullied. And I tell them about the body language and that vocal tone that you must own. You can't do, I'm in charge, because no one's going to believe you.
That's right.
You don't have to say you're in charge if you're in charge, if you're really owning who you are.
Exactly.
So I teach that whole body mindset thing, because if you're a leader, and that's what I teach leaders, if you're a leader, you must own it, because the way you stand, the way you hold yourself, and the way you talk, you're in charge.
That's
They don't
right.
know what you're in charge of, but you're in charge.
Well, it's like Norman Schwarzkopf, his famous quote is, when in command, take charge. And that's what I teach. You know, part of the martial art training that we do is we actually do leadership training and, you know, developing young instructors, right? Sometimes, you know, young teenagers, et cetera. But I've watched so many kids move through that journey with this amazing confidence where they could talk as easily to a parent, you know, someone in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, as easily as they were talking to a 4-year-old child. And, you know, I'd have students all the time where parents thought that they were much older than they were. I'm thinking of one young man who he was 16, 17 years old. All the mothers thought he was in his early to mid 20s. And his was a great story in that he had started with me quite young. He originally it was just his mom, his sister, and him that had moved from California. And he was not at all a gifted martial artist physically, but he just kept showing up. He kept showing up, and eventually got his black belt. Then he stuck around, got his second-degree black belt. Then he started being an assistant instructor, and now he's a senior in high school, and he's one of my top instructors, and people just love him. And he has one dream. His dream is to go to the Colorado School of Mines, which is a great engineering and technical school here in the Denver area, and totally has his sights focused on that. And one day I walk in the studio and he's at the front desk with a very, very just depressed look on his face, shoulders down. And he says, "Sir, could we talk?" And I said, "Of course." And we go into the office and he proceeds to tell me that he got the letter saying that he was denied access. He wasn't accepted to School of Mines. And it was because he got a C in chemistry his freshman or sophomore year of high school. Okay. So we talk about his next plan, and his plan, he's going to go to another university here in the Colorado area, and then he's going to transfer into School of Mines in his sophomore year. That's his plan. Well, about 2 to 3 weeks go by, and I walk in the studio again, and now he's again at the front desk with a huge grin on his face and says, "Sir, can we talk?" And I said, "Of course," and lead him into the office, and he proceeds to tell me that on his own accord, 17 years old, on his own accord, he called the admissions director at the Colorado School of Mines and asked to meet with him. And he asked to meet with him because he wanted to know what classes he needed to take in the next year at this other school so he could transfer in. But he was confident, he was enthusiastic, he was humble, but he was and respectful. And in the middle of this conversation, the dean put his hand up and said, "Stop." So he thought, "Oh man, what have I said?" And he goes, "I'm admitting you to the Colorado School of Mines."
Yeah.
He said, "Don't you ever get a C in chemistry again." And that was it, right? But the idea was, it was about who he was being, right? And then he took the action. You know, he took the action, and that's a pretty courageous thing for a 17-year-old to do, right? But he took the action. I was so proud of him. And then about a month or two after that, he successfully tested for his 3rd-degree black belt with me. And last time I heard, he's out of school. He's working in the petroleum industry, which is what his intention was, and he's doing great work in the world. But it started with who he was being and being able to access that champion inside of himself.
Well, that's awesome. That's just a beautiful story. Because isn't that what we want for everybody?
We want it for everyone.
Just
we want it for everyone.
own who
In fact, Michelle, this is you want to hear my philosophy of life. This
Please.
is what I absolutely I believe in my heart of hearts. If every one of us was tapped into our greatest power, and we knew the greatest gifts that we were supposed to share, and we were all doing that, all of the problems that we have in terms of poverty, economic difficulties, war, all that, now this is a very utopian thing to say, but they would all go away, because everyone would feel so good about themselves, they'd want nothing more than everyone else to have that same experience. That's my belief.
Well, Chris, my belief is very similar. I just said it on a podcast about a week ago, and it came out of me, and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But my thought is, The reason there's so much uncertainty and anguish and despair and fighting and all this happening in the world is because we all have a gift. And because we're all so busy, so many of us are so busy trying to fit as that corner piece in this big, magnificent puzzle, when we're actually, you know, the green piece here, the little orange piece here, we're little tiny pieces of this gigantic puzzle, and they're all trying to be in that same corner piece. We're unhappy because we're trying to be who we're not.
That's right.
Be who we truly are. And it doesn't matter if, you know, well, with me, it was like, oh, I'm too short, I'm too this, I'm too that, so I can't be this. Just be the best version of you, and you will complete the puzzle of the planet that we've been waiting for. You will have the answer that would solve, you know, poverty or whatever it's going to be, because you're so busy trying to be some movie star or wear the right shoes or fit in the right clique, that you're not being the unique human that you were put on this planet to be. Once we all start stepping into that unique part of the world that we're supposed to be in, whoever you're supposed to be, there's only one of you,
Right.
one of all of us, right? All the pain would stop.
Wow. Well, I guess that message is true since we both got it. I mean, that's it. That is it.
Yeah. Stop trying to.
I've just seen it so many times, not only in my own life, but in the lives of my coaching clients and my students, when people are able to find that part of themselves, you know, and even folks that have taken several years, maybe they've lived almost a full lifetime, and then they finally find, right, it's there. It is absolutely there for all of us. And quite honestly, I think you could probably argue that's maybe one of the reasons we all come down on this earthly plane, is to find that, rediscover that.
We're supposed to remember it.
Yeah.
I taught at a team and I, we taught at a school. And one of the things I was telling them about was, you know, being uniquely who we are. Oh, what was I going on with that? Because I brought that up the first time about being uniquely who we are, and it would stop bullying because, oh, that was it. I bullied myself for most of my life because I was always comparing myself to my siblings. So let me give you a rundown. My oldest brother is a musical savant.
Mm.
He could write music in his head, full orchestras in his head, and he would write it like he was signing his name. It was that fast. My next brother he could do any sport and be the number one, fastest, strongest, you name it. If he did it, he was going to be the best. My sister, tall, lanky, beautiful, always the model, always winning the beauty pageants. Then 6 years later, I came along. I'm 5 foot. I'm okay with music, but no one else was a singer, so I could kind of sing. I was good at sports, but I had really bad vision depth perception, so I couldn't catch a ball. I was never going to be a supermodel. You know, so I compared myself to my brothers and sisters and then felt I was inadequate. And what I realized as an adult, after my body tried to give out on me for, 5 times in the past 6 years, was that the things I was denying as my strength, so things I got in trouble for in school, okay? So that's what I told the kids. What did you get in trouble for in school? I used to get in trouble for talking all the time and trying to make peace with everybody. I would be the one who would get in the middle of the fights of the big boys fighting. I would get in the middle of them and say, stop, why are you fighting? It makes no sense. And I was the one who always got in trouble for that. What do I do as an adult now? What do I thrive on? Speaking and helping people figure out their difference, and loving them anyways. So it's like, wait a minute. So no, I'm not the best at music, but I can break out into song anytime I want to. No, I'm not like the perfect athlete, but I'm very athletic.
Sure.
No, I'm not a beauty queen, but I like me anyways. I mean, so it was like, oh, I don't have to be them to be me. Right. That took to 50 years old to figure out. So my job is to turn on lights for everybody so they realize that they can just be them. Exactly.
Love it. Love it.
I just preached to you, didn't I?
Well, you're speaking to the choir.
I know.
You're speaking to the choir.
Awesome. Well, is there anything that I forget to talk about? I mean, you're a speaker, you do the cool workshops, you do coaching, you do Facebook Lives where, well, I like listening to them. I never comment. I just watch them. I'm a stalker. What else? I know what I didn't ask you about. In the higherselfdefense.com part?
Yes.
Talk about the app.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So thanks for bringing that up. So my business partner, Teresa Byrne, and myself, we were just asked, in fact, I think we're having our finalizing meeting on Friday. We were asked to be national spokespeople for an app that is called ebodyguard.org. And the way the eBodyguard is going to work. So let me just preface it this way. We teach this adrenal self-defense course, and we deal with the adrenal response. And certain things happen when we get adrenalized. Number one, we lose small motor skill, okay? So when you're adrenalized and you feel that energy moving through you, try to put your key in a lock. You won't be able to find it, right? You get tunnel vision. That's why when the guy robs the 7-Eleven and the police come to ask for the description, the guy behind the counter says, I have no idea what he looked like, but the gun was this big, right? Because he's focused on that. You get what's called auditory exclusion. So you can't hear things. So anyway, all this stuff starts to go haywire. And so this app, ebodyguard.org, the way it's going to work is it's going to be on your phone, and you simply, it's going to be voice activated within a 30-foot radius. And so when you're confronted and you yell out powerfully or you state powerfully, eBodyguard now, it immediately calls 911. It gives a GPS position of where you're at. It calls whoever you've listed on your list as your point of contact, and it begins a video and audio recording. So if you're being confronted by someone, you need to ID them, you hold up your phone, and it's doing a video and audio recording. So it's not only going to be the app, it's going to be a community wellness platform. So we're going to be doing the self-defense and assertiveness and empowerment training. Others might be exercise physiology, diet, nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. So people will be able to be interactive with it. But this is going to be rolling out here beginning in the mid-fall, and I'm incredibly excited about it because this is going to be a way for people to be safe. 1 in 3 women, 1 in 6 men will be assaulted at some time in their life, physically and or sexually assaulted. So being able to have this as a tool, for me, this is just another avenue of teaching people personal empowerment and keeping them safe.
That sounds awesome. Now, my weird question about this eBodyguard thing, this app, I would say, if it's in your back pocket, will it still hear you?
Yes, because it will access it to within a 30-foot radius of your voice.
So it doesn't matter what it's in.
It doesn't matter. It could be in your purse, could be sitting on the kitchen table, and you're in another room.
Okay, good.
30-foot radius. Yep.
Good. That sounds really cool.
And again, doesn't need to be activated with your fingers, because that is what, like when I teach my self-defense course, I'll oftentimes joke, a woman will say, well, I carry mace. And I say, great. By the way, could you get a pen out of your purse for me, please? I need a pen. And how long is she, struggling through to find a purse? Well, think about being adrenalized with a 240-pound guy with bad intentions coming down on you, and you're trying to find mace. Probably isn't going to happen, right?
Well, I'm laughing not at what you just said. I'm laughing because I have a cabin out in the woods, and I had my bear can spray with me.
Okay.
And I'm walking out in the woods, and I looked at the can, and it says, spray downwind, do not spray upwind. So it doesn't come at you. Spray within 30 feet of grizzly into its eyes.
Oh, okay.
If you miss, spray again. And I'm thinking, I have a can and I have a grizzly running at me at what, 20-something miles an hour? Right. There is no way, one, I'm going to take the switch, flip it, and do this, aim it into its eyes, and if I miss, still be alive.
Right? Oh my gosh.
Right? So I'm thinking the same thing with the mace.
Yeah. It's just so, you need to learn how, just like you need to learn to tap into that power inside yourself, it's just another way. So being able to deal with the adrenal response, that's what's so amazing about the work that we do in that program.
And that's why I'm excited also with the higher self-defense that you do, because one of the biggest things I think I learned out of martial arts was deflecting their energy onto themselves. I was attacked, tried to be attacked, but at that point, I was in between 2 doors. Like I was going into one glass door and there was another glass door, like maybe 10 feet away. The guy cornered me in that room. And he said, I finally have you to myself. Now what are you going to do? And I stepped 1 foot back, ready, like that one back, martial arts step back. I said, Actually, I'm wondering what you're going to do. And he is, what do you mean? I said, I'm deciding if you're going to go through that door or that window. And he went, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But that confidence that you build in people, the old me would have never said that.
Right.
The old me would have went, will you please let me go? No, the new me went, I dare you. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to do it that way, but it made him back off because he didn't know what I would do. Right. But yeah, self-defense starts with a mental attitude. Now,
it totally is. It is an attitude, and well, but it's basically the same building block of anything, right?
Everything.
It's starting inside of ourselves. So you talked about that inner beingness inside. When a big part of my keynote is I talk about the concept of most of us live life from a perspective of have, do, be. When I have enough money, then I'll do what I want to do and I'll be happy, right? But most people who are happy and or successful, whatever that means, that are truly experiencing that level of success and happiness, they turn those words around. They look at life from a perspective of be, do, have.
Yes.
If you want to be more loving, more conscious, more courageous, whatever, be that way, do the things that support that way of being, and then you can have what you want.
Anything.
It doesn't happen from the outside in, it happens from the inside out.
I like that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because the one thing I haven't talked about yet is your online program. You have an online program through the chrisnatzke.com site, and I want you to talk a little bit more about that. We only have about 5 minutes, so
Sure.
What is that? Because people need to get a bit of you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, it started out as my book, Black Belt Leadership. I have the 7 qualities, and I thought, it's basically the foundation of my coaching program, because those are the 7 qualities that I teach about. Talking about having a purposeful vision, being the change you want to see in the world, being consciously persistent about what you want to move through, inspired action, etc. And I thought, the book touches those and it gives some stories and it might inspire or motivate people. But I want to have a program where people could take a deeper dive in every 7 of those areas. So what does it mean to not only have a vision in your mind, but what does it mean to actually create it and have it come alive? So there's a process in the first section where they actually go into a real deep dive of what is their vision for life? What's their vision for their work? What's their vision for their relationship? And they actually take a detailed look and they create it. And it's a living document for them. And so within these 7 qualities, I actually had 8 units, and every one of them, as you might imagine, is equated to a belt rank. So the first one is a white belt, that's creating your vision. The yellow belt is being the change you wish to see. And there's a video that comes along with it, videos, I should say. There's also a workbook that takes them through. And so that is my online program. And actually just yesterday, and you'll see it in the written version and the video if you haven't watched yet, I was challenged yesterday by one of my coaches. The talk that I gave yesterday that I did in my weekly blog was about perfectionism, as I noted, and how being perfect has always held me back. And he said, I bet there's a lot of people out there that are dealing with those same things around perfectionism. He said, wouldn't it be interesting if rather than planning this whole program like you normally would over 6 months and then enroll it with the perfect website, what if you started a program tomorrow that wasn't perfect, but you just did it because it was the right thing to do? So I'm starting a new coaching program. I'm going to select 8 people over the next several weeks. We're going to start in mid-October. The working title right now is If You're a Perfectionist, You're Being Selfish. Because if you're holding yourself back because of perfectionism, you're not sharing your gifts in the world. And we're going to use the online program as the basis. We'll meet every week in a video call on Zoom. They'll also have one-on-one coaching with me. And get this, Michelle, they're going to have to choose at least one thing that they can fail at in those 8 weeks.
That's fabulous.
So I'm putting it, so if anybody's interested in that, I literally am just announcing it now. This is like the first show that I've announced it on, but just reach out to me. If somebody's interested, go to my website, reach out to me. And if they want to have a chat, I'd love to have that discussion because I think it's going to be powerful. Because I think once we get beyond that need inside of ourselves that we have to be absolutely perfect, that's when the perfection actually shows itself.
Exactly. I'm excited for you. I mean, that's how I launched my my mastermind for my book, It's Not Luck, Overcoming You. I got a group of, well, there ended up being 20 people. I only wanted 15. Ended with 20 people.
Nice.
But what we did was I did the first call and assessed where everybody was, and then decided what I was going to do for the next session. And we recorded them as it happened. And that's how I built the actual course that just sits there online, because we built it off of what people needed when they needed it, not when I thought they would need it. And I had to launch it not ready.
Well, you see, that's the thing. That was such great coaching from my coach. He's like, you know, you're telling me that, you know, you deal with this issue with perfectionism and how it's, won't this be good for you to launch without it being perfect? I said, oh, gulp. Yeah, it sure would. So there you go. So that's what I'm launching. So that's what's awesome. Going on with the online program. I'm really proud of it. It's kind of my life's work at this point in time, you know, using the martial arts as the metaphor. And basically the little thing is, when you move through the 8 weeks, you can get your black belt, if you will, in life leadership skills. So that's what the intention is.
Oh, our cricket friend came
He's back. I see him now, actually. He came through my window, or he came down the steps, and he's sitting in the corner by my bookshelf. So this is my office you're looking at right here. So I live by myself, so maybe that's my new roommate.
Well, I think he just has a lot to say.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. It's cool that he has a lot to say, because he has things that he's just contributing to all of this, and he
well,
wants to
know.
know.
In Asian culture, crickets are good luck.
They are very good luck.
Very good luck.
He also wants you to know that if you're out there listening and you're wondering if you're good enough, if you're ready for this, a cricket is a very, very tiny creature, right? Mm-hmm. And he's got a big voice, right? He was able to overpower 2 professional speakers on a phone call.
That's right.
So he's out there now telling all of his little cricket friends, you can do anything.
That's right.
Right? So we're telling you right now, message from the cricket.
There you go.
You can do anything. You can embody and find that inner champion in you. Be the best version of you. Find Chris. So go to www.chris, Natzke, Natzke.com to learn more about him and find out about his online program, because he's launching it, not perfect. You get to be part of that growth process, which is huge. And then the other website is higherselfdefense.com, where they deal with adrenal stress, right?
Right. And if I may, that's higher, HIGHER, self-defense, not HIRE.
Oh, not
higher,
hiring,
like
yeah.
High.
Higher up.
High up in the sky, higher self-defense. So it's like tapping into your higher self.
That's funny. I never thought of the HIR. I always think higher.
Me too.
And then you also have an app that's coming up, ebodyguard.org.
That's correct. And we're doing a soft launch at the end of this month, and it'll be available in the fall. But I'll keep you posted on that as details become available.
And so reach out with Chris and ask him about that course, and maybe you can jump into and be part of that awesomeness. Find him on his Facebook page, because he does his Facebook Live bloggy things. I'm so technical. And remember, perception is reality. So when you see what you want, you can bring it to pass. But if you don't believe that it can happen, it won't ever happen. You have to see it. And that's how I met Chris. He helped me put things on a board of the things I knew were holding me back to what I really, really wanted. And with his board-breaking exercise at the Breakthrough Business Bootcamp, I learned to break through my fears to get what I want. Thank you so much, Chris, for joining me on my show.
Thanks, my friend. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And if you joined us on the video and watched us, awesome. Please share it. And if you have listened only through the SoundCloud, great. Still share it. You are listening to Michelle Mras, and you can find more about me and the SoundCloud link to every show I've had for the past year and a half at www.michellemras.com. That's MICHELLEMRAS.com. And follow me on any social media platform if you want to be on my show. If you've just thought of someone that you think should be on my show, write me. Let me know. I'd love to have them on. So until the next time, keep in mind my new name of my show is Mental Shift, Reaching Your Full Potential. Until next time, have a great week.